Hi. Welcome, everybody. So my name is Michael. If you haven't heard that yet, not that it matters, I run a little company called German, which came to me in a very loving manner. Started this 2013. Since then, I've been evolving it, or actually it has evolved and took me with it. And part of this is trying to make things easier, to explain things in a very crispy way and still in a very precise way. And that's what I will try to do tonight with the word Nicht. I will also talk about kein, 1 minute at max. Kein is very easy. Nicht is the one that causes trouble. And you will see how. And let's see how this goes tonight. Yeah? Feel free to ask any question in the chat. I will not see that while I talk. I have two assistants in the back. One is Lydia and one is Ahmed, who has been helping me for a couple of years already. And after that, I can scroll down the chat and look at your questions and answer them. If something is not clear, also let me know. Can you actually hear me? Just one or two people saying yes, that would do the job. But I would assume that anyone would have written something if not. Huh? Okay. Shall we get started then? Thank you, Denise. Remember your name. So, how to use Nicht? You know, to negate things in German, you have two options. One is Nicht and the other one is kein. You will see it here. Oh, it's a little bit, excuse the design. It is formatting error. I will, if it gets too bad, I will upload a new PDF. But I hope you can read it. And the difference between Nicht and kein is very simple. Kein is used for nouns. So basically, whenever you have a word with a capital letter, like Auto, and you want to negate that, you put a kein in front of it. You can easily remember that by imagining, you could as well write this without the K. Ich habe ein Auto. You want to negate that, you just put a K in front of the ein. Voila, you're done. And the endings behave accordingly. So this is something that doesn't require really much thinking, nor understanding. The more difficult thing is to understand what ending the ein takes, but that will be covered in other lessons in my online course. Yeah. So Nicht is for everything else. Anything that you can see here. Ich gehe nicht zur Arbeit. Zu, without the R, is what we call a preposition. The word gives it away. It's in front of something. So it's in front of a noun. Arbeit has a capital A, so it's a noun. So it's in front of the zu. Is nicht groß. So if I want to negate something, an adjective. Adjectives are like characteristics of things: big, small, expensive, cheap, old, young. Then I also use Nicht, and sometimes I use it to negate full sentences, or, as I will show later, the verb of a sentence. You cannot just put the Nicht in front of the liebst. Du nicht liebst mich, that doesn't work. You not love me. That also doesn't work in English. Yeah, you have to say do not love me. So this is the overview of this. Let's take a look. Hopefully that looks nicer. Good. So in general, the main rule is Nicht is put in front of what you want to negate. We will look at a couple of examples later, and it is not always that crystal clear, but let's say 80% of the time this rule might help you. Then there is a little trick, which I also will walk you through. If there's a preposition, things get a lot easier. We just put the Nicht in front of that preposition. And if it's at the very end of a sentence, then it negates the verb. Sometimes there is no other space than the end, but then it still negates the verb. Let's take a look. So the first rule is in front of what you want to negate. This is a very special example, and most of the examples you see now you will not come across them very often in your learning journey. But let's say this one, ich habe dich gestern im Kino gesehen. You could negate the ich by putting the Nicht in front of it. Nicht ich habe dich gestern im Kino gesehen, sondern mein Vater. It wasn't me who has seen you in the cinema, but my father. So that's possible. And the nicht, as you can see here, doesn't take any space because the habe is still on position 2. That's a little bit about sentence structure. The verb in German, the conjugated verb, the one that takes the ending E here, that is always on position 2. So you could negate even this, but honestly, this is really dramatic. Not me. Yeah, it wasn't me. And so this is just a possibility, but not something you see very often. Then you could also negate the dich. Ich habe nicht dich gestern im Kino gesehen. If you can't hear anything, give me a second. If you can't hear anything, restart the webinar for you. Yeah? Genau. So you negate the person that you have seen. We call this the object. It's the thing that has been seen. Yeah. So ich habe nicht dich gesehen, not you, but my father. So I've seen my father. And you see here, meinen Vater gives it away. Yeah. The dich and meinen Vater are in the same case. They are both in what we call accusative. Don't worry about these things if you're not familiar yet with them. I want you to be clear that what you're replacing here is the same case in the same category. Another possibility, the gestern, the next word. Ich habe nicht dich gestern gesehen. Ich habe dich nicht gestern im Kino gesehen, sondern vorgestern. And as you can see, yeah, I'm frozen, somebody says. So let me see, but the signal here is strong. I should be okay. Anyone else struggling with the connection? Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you have to see, it might be your connection. Thank you all. So let's continue. If that is not clear, let me know, but so far it's all going right. Then here we can negate the im Kino. In German, you always have to deal with units of information. So im Kino is a unit of information that you wouldn't take apart. So I would not put the nicht between the im and the Kino. You couldn't say, ich habe dich gestern im Nicht-Kino gesehen. That's impossible. In the cinema is something that's kind of glued together. And yeah, the one thing why I chose Bordel, not that you need it very often, it nicely shows the kinship between German and English, because we use the same letters. We just turn the R and the O around, and the TH in English is very often a D in German. So that way you can play around with English words and still get an understanding. Yeah? Okay, thanks, Ahmed. One last. In English, you see here, the so is in the beginning, but in German, if you talk in the past, the main verb goes to the very end. And then it can also be negated. Ich habe dich gestern im Kino nicht gesehen, sondern gerochen. I reeked you. Yeah, I smelled you. So while this is not a very welcome situation that you can smell someone rather than seeing them, I think you get the idea, right? Good. Then there's a couple of interesting situations where the nicht goes to the end and where it's basically about the verb. So vergiss mich, forget me. Vergiss mich nicht, forget me not. And of course, you could also say vergiss nicht mich, forget not me, but rather your boyfriend. It's very unlikely. Yeah, you rather would say, don't forget me. And the same with ich arbeite heute nicht. It is not that important that it's today that you don't work. It's rather the fact that you do not work that you want to stress, and that's why the nicht is at the end and not in front of the heute. Unless it's so important to you to say it's today that I don't work, then you could say ich arbeite nicht heute. But if you do that, I would actually expect you to say but tomorrow. I'm not working today, but tomorrow. Yeah, in German. In English, that is a bit more flexible. Ich liebe dich nicht. I don't love you. If you want to say I don't love you, but your brother, you would say ich liebe nicht dich, sondern deinen Bruder. So this is how you would have to deal with this. It requires a little bit of exposure to the German language, lots of reading, and yeah, it doesn't have to become crystal clear all the time, but try to get a feel for this. What am I negating? If it's at the end, it's most important for you to say that the action, the verb is negated. Yeah, you would rarely say I love not you but your brother. You would rather say I don't love you. Ich liebe dich nicht. That's 99% of the cases. So this is something to keep in mind. Then we have a couple of special positions, and that's, for example, in the past. Very often you use two verbs, and actually until the end of B1 this is the only past you need, habe and a GE word, a past participle. Very often, if there's nothing else in between, you put the nicht in front of the past participle. It gets more complicated if there's more elements in a sentence. But if you say, ich habe nicht gegessen, ich habe nicht geschlafen, ich habe nicht gerochen, then you put it there. You also have verbs at the end when they are pushed to the end. They are pushed by what I call pushers. Other people call them subjunctions, like das or weil or wenn, and you find the mark at the end. Then you also put the nicht in front of that. Basically, the nicht in these cases is at the end, but the pushed verbs overtake the nicht and therefore make it seem as if the nicht is the second last position. But logically, the nicht is still at the end, negating the verb. Yeah, does that make sense to you? Let that sink in a little bit. Maybe in the review you can take more time making sense of this.